And welcome back to Bars Loaded Podcast with Ben and Nick.
Who have you been fiddling, Nicholas?
Tech issues. Just such a beautiful thing. Persevere. Persistence.
Let's go with that.
To quote the great Rob Hunter Strength. Strength through persistence. Podcasting with persistence.
I thought you were going to do like some Bear Grylls like quote there. It was like, improvise, overcome, adapt.
Well, I'll tell you what. I have this. I started telling you the story before everything fucking shit itself again. I have this Logitech keyboard and Logitech mouse, and I was doing check-ins today, and because Apple like wants everything to be Apple.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an Apple wireless, I'm sure this is what it is. If you don't have an Apple wireless keyboard and mouse, it's like really clunky and it doesn't pick up the mouse movements very well, and it'll not move at all, and then all of a sudden it'll be on the other end of the screen, and then I'll be typing, and then it stops typing, and then all of a sudden like 6 words types, and then I've backspaced half of it, and it's just a fucking clusterfuck. Half the keys don't work. So you can imagine my brain doing a check-in where I'm just like a million miles an hour, stimmed up to the eyeballs, just like writing paragraphs, and then I look up and I've got like 4 letters on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
I've got 3 solutions for you.
Is one of them peg the keyboard and mouse at the wall? Because I did that twice.
I have 4 solutions for you.
Okay.
So, number 1, peg the keyboard and the mouse across the room.
Yeah.
Number 2...
That didn't help, by the way.
No, I don't imagine it would have. Number 2 is use Loom, so you don't actually have to like write shit. Like once you're recording, you're good to go.
No, but when I'm programming, this is when it happens.
Well then, here are my next 2 options. Option 3 is fuck your wireless things, get shit with wires and just plug them straight into the computer so there's less hiccups. Or number 4... Number 4...
Because if there's wires, then I have to cable tie all of the wires together so that they're neat.
And?
Well, then that means that nothing can move because everything in the whole room's cable tied together. And what if I want to like move shit?
Then you get out a pair of snips and you cut the cable tie, you move shit and you retie them. It's not that complicated.
Nope.
Or option 4, just buy some fucking Apple keyboards and mice.
That's what's happening. I also think I need a new laptop because my laptop stays plugged in all of the time. Which I didn't think was an issue because it's just like in my office all the time. Like I rarely take it out of the office. But I had a fair few clients back to back the other day, and then I had a consult call booked in one of the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, well, obviously I just have to take my laptop so that I can do the consult upstairs in the office. Took my laptop, I slept it, so put it on sleep, closed it, put it in the laptop carry case, took it to work, did 2 sessions, went upstairs, opened the laptop, it was on 40% battery.
Oh, good.
I was like, I haven't used it. How has it used 60% battery?
Mm.
So, and then I was told by someone who's a little bit more tech savvy than I am that leaving it plugged in fucks the battery somehow or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would happen, but I guess it does.
I'll tell you, I have an example of like how that works, but I'm going to tell you that one off air because people probably think I'm weird enough as I am. I don't really need to like compound that perception.
Are you going to go into like the physics of ion batteries?
No, I'm going to use another example entirely.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one's like a little bit more like tinfoil hat.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going into the realms of things that make things bend that we haven't discussed live yet.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love that side of you.
Sometimes I do, and then other times I'm just like, why can't I be normal? Like the amount of time that I spend getting like, obviously, you know that I get stuck in real holes pretty fucking badly. When
to put it lightly.
Yeah. But when it's like conspiracy reels, oh man, I can spend fucking hours down those motherfuckers.
Yeah, I know. I get most of them sent to me.
No, you don't. That's the scary part.
Oh, I don't?
No. There's like good chunk that I send to you, but there's also a lot that I'm like, oh my God, they're listening. Oh no.
Do you think you've implicated me just by sending them to me?
I hope so.
Mm. No,
If I get sent to a retraining camp, I hope you come with me.
Yeah. Wherever we're going, at least we're going together.
Exactly.
We'll be like the naughty kids in the back of class.
Yeah, except we'll just instead of getting put in the naughty corner and being told to be quiet, we get like sent out the back and shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be the worst thing.
Probably not.
No.
It could be significantly worse.
Oh, always like torn. I don't know. Am I torn? I don't know. I don't know if torn's the right word. I'm slightly envious, and at the same time, slightly annoyed by, and then also at the same time, like I find it also kind of funny, but then also I like question the sincerity, all simultaneously when I see the those people on the internet that post like, oh, another sunrise. Waking up is the best gift I could have today. And I'm like, dude, do people actually think that? Like, I wake up and I'm like, fuck, here we go again, another one.
See, there's a meme that like every time I see it, I'm just like, oh, this fills me with so much joy. And it's this guy like with like he's on his bed, he's got like a dinner over him, and it's the caption is like, you know, what would you do if you knew that tomorrow you wouldn't wake up? And it's him crawling in the bed like, and I'm like, relatable content.
It'd be like Christmas. You'd be like, I'll go to bed early to make it happen quicker. Yeah. It's like when you're 5 years old, you're like, if I go to bed at 4 p.m. today, that means when I wake up, it's Christmas. You're like, you mean I don't wake up tomorrow? Fucking midday. That's not too early to go to bed, is it? I'll just end it here.
Good morning. Good evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
for real,
fuck.
dude.
Yeah.
It's just like, people make fun of me at the gym about being, like an old man. Get off my lawn. I always think
turn down that damn radio.
Yeah, like Clint Eastwood in, all of the movies he's ever done since he was 30, basically.
Yeah.
But I've been like this since I was like 10.
Mm.
This isn't like old man Nick. This is just Nick.
This is just me. Are you thinking
I woke
of
I woke up when I was 10 and I was like, I'm ready. Like, this ride can end at any point. And ever since then, I've just been hanging on.
Are you thinking of how he is in like Gran Torino when like people going in the street? He's like, ugh.
Yeah, Gran Torino. That's my favorite. One of my favorite characters of all time, I reckon. It's just so
fucking good. Yeah, it's just like this
like,
angry, bitter old man.
And then everything that happens, he's just like, oh, really? Fuck. All right, I guess.
Sprinkled him with like, a little bit of racism.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I guess, but not like proper racism, just like weekend racism. Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna make fun of everyone despite what color your skin is.
Yeah, just like lighthearted.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a sprinkle, just like a Theo Von style.
Yeah.
They get away with it though.
Exactly.
I don't know how, man. Some of the stuff that guy says.
It's fucking wild, some of what he says, but it's also like some of it. He's such an interesting character because some of the stuff that he says, you're like, how the fuck did he say that and get away with it? And then he says some other shit where you're like, oh wow, that was really like thought-provoking and heartfelt, and oh my god, like what an intelligent man. Yeah. Like the episode that he had with Sean Strickland, where obviously like Strickland broke down crying, and he's like, that's cool, man, like I'll sit here with you, like, you know, you're okay, you know, just take your time. I think like that was a really like phenomenal display of not only his skills as an interviewer, but I think like just his skills as a human.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to like hold space for someone who is so beyond the realm of, you know, macho. Obviously, Sean Strickland like literally goes around beating the shit out of people for a job and seems to really fucking enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of the shit that Theo says is fucking wild.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the people that get upset about shit like that, I think they fail to understand that the Theo that we see 90% of the time is a character.
Yeah.
And that when you're like, when he had that interview with Sean Strickland, and I've seen him do like other interviews with Dana White was one of them, where you see where he's like not in character.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a big difference in, you know, what he's playing versus who he is.
Mm.
And that's all comedy is. It's just like, they all do it. They all just pick a character and then they play that character. Yeah, and that's. But it's like they're not acting; they're like playing a character, and I feel like there's a difference there because that's what makes comedy so funny. Is like you can almost believe that that's just them being them.
Yeah.
Like another guy that does it really well is that really handsome dude.
Me.
Yeah, Ben Mac.
Yeah.
No, who's that handsome fella? Matt Rife.
Oh, yeah.
He does it really well too, and people get so fucking offended with some of the shit that he says, but I'm like, you know, he's just like, this is his job, right? He's just playing a character and like he's saying stuff just to get attention.
Did you see what he did? So obviously with his Netflix special, he got dragged through the trenches for making like the domestic violence joke. And then did you see what he did for his apology?
No, I don't think so.
So what he did, so he makes like this domestic violence joke at the start of his YouTube special. Oh, sorry, his Netflix special. You know, naturally there's a shitload of backlash, and he's like, look, at the end of the day, this joke isn't for women that are the victims of domestic violence. You know, the backlash goes on a little bit more. And he's like, look, you know what, I've heard you. You know, for those of you who felt victimized by my Netflix special and the joke that was made at the start, like, please follow this link. You'll get a link to my apology video. And if you click on it, it would then take you to a website where you can buy special needs helmets. And I'm like, what a fucking savage way to respond to criticism. But at the same time, fucking hilarious.
That's fucking great.
Like, if we got to, like, so, I mean, Rogan talks about it all the time where he's like, oh, you post something, it's like posting ghosts. Like, you post something, you don't read the comments, and then you hear of other people like, oh, like, I post something and I read every single comment. And I'm like, man, if I was getting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of comments on the posts that I put up, I would probably go through and read the ones where it's like actual, like, genuine interaction. But if it was people just trolling, I'd be like, I'm going to ignore that. Oh, someone's genuinely interacting, I'll engage.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be really funny to be like, oh, if anyone finds my content offensive, please follow this link to a apology video. And it's just like, here's a special needs helmet.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking good. It's pretty hard to... So here's the thing. I'm really bad at responding to comments on my Instagram, and I hardly get any comments. Like, I quite literally just post. I think there's a saying, like, post and ghost. Yeah. I just post, and then I'm like...
Bye.
Well, yeah. I forget that post, like, even existed.
Yeah.
And I'll, like, if people comment on it, it'll be like 3 days, and then it'll pop up. I'll be like, oh, fuck, I should probably respond to that thing. So if anyone doesn't get a response back from me, that's why. But
no, he just actually hates you all.
But then on the other hand, fuck, people say some random shit on the internet, man.
So the funny thing is, there's a guy I know, and I'm going to be mindful to not say how I know him, because if he happens to see like a reel that's cut up from this episode, or he listens to the actual episode, I don't want him to know it's him. But I see his comments pop up. Like, there'll be a post on like a random random Instagram page, and I'll see like his comments like in it, and I'm like, you're that guy that just posts the most like redundant comments and random comments on pages where like you're not tagging anyone. The page that has posted it isn't actually the person. Like, you're just that like annoyed old man who's just like yelling at the internet. It's where I imagine. I was gonna say, I imagine that's where you're going to be in like the next like 5 to 10 years.
Wait, are you talking about me?
Yes.
I feel like all I do these days is just yell shit at the internet. And it's just like,
probably.
Here we go. Let's put up a post about fucking some dumb shit that people are doing. Oh, let's make a podcast about some dumb shit that people are doing. Oh,
which is why we have 4 years of content lined up.
Oh, fuck. No, people are so dumb. It's great. Dude, I had this guy comment on my video yesterday. Doesn't follow me. Doesn't follow M.
Yeah.
Doesn't follow our business page. Just some random dude who, it's like a guitar playing page. It's like some dude just playing his guitar. And he's like, responds to M's comment on my video. And he's like, hands off, he's mine.
Who is this guy?
Literally doesn't follow any of us. Like, just some random person on the internet.
I'm going to pull this up and have a look at it, because
it's on it's on the reel where I'm talking at the gym. It's like 3rd or 4th post after the pinned ones. I think it says like variation isn't a different barbell.
Yeah.
Is it on that?
No, like M's going like, great post, babe, and you've just like responded with like the love hearts. It's not that one.
It's around that time. I could have sworn it was that one. Maybe it's not. Maybe it was the deadlift one, actually.
Which is the deadlift one?
Of me deadlifting at that same gym. I think it says...
Yep.
She's like, I don't think so.
Can we give him a shout out on the podcast?
Yeah, shout him out.
Shout out Kev Shreds.
Kev Shreds, I watched him play. He's better at me than guitar, that's for sure. Like, that's Shreds.
Is he playing any Metallica? Oh, Alice in Chains. I get around that.
It's not bad. I know a Kev that's better, though.
Kev, I want to see some Metallica, mate.
Kev, I want to see you do... Kev Shreds, shout out. Here's a challenge. I want to see you do Godlike by Thy Art Is Murder better than Kevy B.
Well, that's a fucking big call.
Do that, and then I can crown you the best Kevy that I know that shreds on the guitar. Because Kevy B can shred.
The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Yeah. Yeah, but isn't that funny? Like, the internet is just such a weird place. Like,
dude, the internet is full of creeps. Not all creeps, but like there's a lot of creeps, and there's just a lot of weird fucks.
We live in such an odd time.
We really do.
Like, who would think that? Like, yeah, it's just I just don't get it. And then you get the people on Instagram that like want to try and like have intelligent discussions over Instagram and try and like have debates. And I'm like, dude, it's fucking Instagram.
I'm going to put something in our chat at the moment that I'm not going to say verbally, but it explains this argument on the internet.
Because like, I'm not going to engage in like academic discussion on fucking Instagram. It's fucking Instagram. It's a photo and video app. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a bad thing to say.
Oh, I would for sure get fucking cancelled if I said that.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I've said that in real life, like, so I can't even count how many times.
I'd say in real life that's fine, but like I feel like if it's going to be plastered on the interwebs for good, someone's going to be like, he's insensitive, he said a rude thing.
Yeah, well.
And then I'm going to be chased by the blue-haired people.
Well, do you know what, man? I feel like if people... What are we up to now? Episode... So I think this will be episode 19, or... I think this will be episode 19.
Yep.
If people have listened to fucking whatever 19 times 3 is worth of me talking, they know that I'm an insensitive fuck by now. So I don't think that there's any secrets at this point.
Yeah, but like this is where like I think we have the balance of being like good cop, bad cop. They think you're the insensitive asshole, and they're like, "Oh, that Ben guy's nice. He's not a dick." Little do they know.
I'm not a dick. Just an insensitive fuck.
And there's a difference.
There is a difference. Like, I feel like a dick like just doesn't care, whereas I do care. I deeply care about people. I don't like people, and I would definitely avoid them at all costs. But I do care about like their results and like humanity as a whole. My way of like helping though isn't to like pat you on the back and hold your hand. It's to point out everything that you're doing shit and show you a better way.
Have you seen Team America?
Yeah.
Do you remember the dick pussies and arsehole speech?
No, I don't.
Can I? It's like 1:20 long. Can I play it?
Yeah, play it. I can't really hear it.
Yeah. Can you hear it now?
You got your assholes tripping. And all the assholes want us to shit all over everything. So pussies may get mad at dicks once in a while because pussies get fucked by dicks. But dicks also fuck assholes, Chuck. Assholes, you know what you get? Your pussy all covered in shit.
I'm not sure I've ever heard a better metaphor for life.
Oh, it's quite possibly like the best words to live by.
Well, thanks for listening to another episode of Bars Loaded. We might just end it there. 25 minutes, 20 seconds, done.
Happy. That'll be the shortest episode we've ever recorded.
We can't top that.
No.
That's poetry.
It's all that's needed, really.
What have you been up to, man? I feel like I haven't spoke to you in a while. How was your long weekend?
Long.
Yeah. Well, technically, it's still going.
That's if you had a long weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people in the fitness industry don't really have a long weekend when a long weekend rolls around. I had a really busy day on Friday. I did pretty much like 11 till... Oh, sorry. It was like 7 in the morning through till like 1:30 back to back. So by the time like I was done, I popped in and saw my grandparents after that. And then by the time I got home, it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock or something like that. So I was fucking cooked by the time I got home. I was like, I'm buggered. And then I had a friend's baby shower on Saturday morning, which was good fun. And then went for a bit of a hike, if you can call it that, on Saturday afternoon. Wasn't a full-blown park adventure like previously, but there's a botanical gardens. Yeah, there's a botanical gardens like, I don't know, like 10 minutes down the road from where I live. It's on like 1,000 acres. So went for a walk around there for like an hour and a bit, and that was really nice. Had a barbecue with the old Fam Bam on Sunday. And then today it was pretty much just like check-ins, like one session in the gym, and then back here, and then off we go.
Off to the races, yell at the internet.
That's it.
That sounds pretty fun, man.
It was busy.
Did you get much training done?
Dude, I haven't trained since fucking like Thursday last week.
Oh, it's not that big of a break.
No, dude, I literally feel like
you usually train over the weekends, don't you?
Usually train like Sunday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and then like Thursday or Friday, and then usually like Saturday. But just obviously with like a few extra bits and pieces on. It's the first time in a while that I've sort of been like, eh.
Yeah.
Also just because I was like fighting the tail end of this like cough fucking thing that I've had going on. It's giving me the shits. I was like, I don't really want to be putting a huge amount of pressure through my fucking head, trying to like hold my breath during shit, and I also don't want to have to go in and like be a pussy and be like, I'm going to bench 60 kilos.
Yeah. So like,
but
at that
I
point,
kind of also just
like,
took the extra rest as a bit of a saving grace, because I'm going to give my close grip bench a real good nudge this week.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a bit of fun.
You're coming off a bit of a PB with that, huh?
Yeah, so last week I hit 3x3 at 145, which is a PB on volume and weight, which is always nice. So the best I think I'd ever hit was like 140 for a triple. And the week prior I did that for like 4 sets. So the plan is hopefully to try and squeeze out a triple at 150 this week.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
You reckon you can?
It'll depend heavily on like where I'm at mentally. Yeah, I reckon I've got a pretty good shot of hitting it, which I think if I can hit 150 for a triple close grip, I think that sets me up pretty nicely to be able to then transition back into my normal grip and be able to push that pretty hard.
I reckon you might win our little bet.
The race to 170.
Mm.
Yeah, that's because you're not even fucking benching at the moment.
No, I haven't for a while.
So I definitely think I'm going to win.
Imagine if I just came back and benched 170 just randomly.
I'd be so disappointed. I'd be like, all this hard work for nothing.
Yeah, I might just fucking load up and just do it.
Do it.
I'll just blast really hard for like 2 weeks.
It was funny.
At all.
When I put up like a post, I think it was yesterday, where I was sort of talking about like I posted videos like me doing like deadlifts with like a comp back in like 2019 that I just couldn't be fucked doing. And I was like, ironically enough, like this comp was the one that I cared the least about, but it's the one I did the best in.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll have to like, jump back on the platform and just like improve upon this total. And Josh messages me, he's like, I'll race you to 800. I'm like, bro, no. I'm like, you will absolutely win.
Do you reckon?
I reckon the only way I would win is if I join the dark side.
No, I reckon there's another way.
Break his leg?
No, I wouldn't do that to the fella, but you're his coach. You just tell him he's not ready to compete until after you've hit 800.
Just sabotage the whole process.
Yeah, just be like, no, dude, we've got things we need to work on. You got to fix this shit.
Sorry, Josh. We're only going to go for a 275 squat.
Yeah.
A 120 bench to be conservative, and maybe like a 250 dead. Like I think that's all we've got there on the day.
It's not there today.
I'll just instill doubt in him, and do a really good job as a coach.
Yeah, just every single time he sends you a video, just point out like everything. Like, oh, bro, did your shin just wobble a little bit?
Regression.
Unload it all. You got to go back to 60. Fix that.
Josh, you heard it here first. Be prepared to be beaten.
No wraps, no sleeves.
You must compete bare knees, beltless.
Bare knees, ass to grass until there's 0 hip shift.
Yep. We can't handle even a millimeter of shift.
No. If you can't squat the bar perfectly, we're not loading it.
Whereas I'm going to be going a reverse banded high box squat in wraps, so obviously.
Yeah, so basically just WRPF.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
I gotta stop doing that.
Nah, it's funny.
Yeah. But they're Russian. Kind of scary.
I'll say, well, if we hear stories of you being murdered, then we know why.
Yeah, it was the WRPF.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kirill came out here and beat you to a pulp using his pinky finger.
If I go missing one day, that's definitely why.
One of the reasons.
It's not the copious amounts of caffeine I consume.
No, it's never.
It exploded me from the inside.
Mm.
That would be an implode, wouldn't it? If it was
yes.
From the inside.
Yeah.
Like
how's your weekend?
Yeah, mine was quite busy too, actually, but actually really good too. I went, fuck, man. On Friday, I had to go to Wyong for footy.
Mm-hmm.
Wyong's Central Coast, about an hour from here. It took about an hour exactly to get to the field. It was a fucking long weekend, and I haven't been to this field in probably 15 years. So, like, I know where it is, but, like, I know the general direction, but I don't actually know how to get there. So I had GPS on, and I had my phone, like, kind of sitting on my leg with the GPS on, so I didn't get done for phone. And I'm driving along, and then the GPS... So, another thing about me, I'm not just a cranky old man, I am an actual old man, and I'm blind and deaf. So
what?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, good.
so life's quite difficult at the best of times, and it can get frustrating. GPS talks to me. I can't actually hear what it says, so I look down to see what it's telling me to do, and I can't actually see what it says either. So I'm like squinting down at the GPS trying to figure out where the fuck I have to turn to get to this field. And just as I look up, I see flashes go off in my like review mirror, and I'm like, oh fuck, that was definitely like the flash of a speed camera or a red light camera or something along those lines. Like, you know when you can see it flash and it's like a very distinct bright flash. And I'm like, oh fuck, that was definitely a flash. Nothing I can do about it now. Went around the corner and I looked down. I was like, oh, I'm only going 62. Like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just a reflection of the car behind me, and it was sunny. I was just around the corner from the field. Got to the field, found a park. Was there for a whole day. There was 4 games, so I was there a whole day. Ran the warm ups for 2 of the teams. Ran yellow shirt, so ran water for one of the teams. And then hung out and watched the other 2 games, and just helped, fill up water and Gatorade bottles for first grade and stuff before halftime. And the whole day I was like, nah. I think it was probably just a reflection. Like, I was only going 62.
Mm-hmm.
Surely, like, they're not going to get me for 2 kilometers. Sure. So I got in my car at the end of the day, pretty pooped. Start driving home. Oh, I'll go home the same way so I can check if there was a speed camera there. Sure enough, driving past, there's a fucking speed camera right there. I'm like, fuck, well, surely it didn't get me for 2 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally 10 meters before the speed camera, it has a 50. The speed limit changes from 60 to 50. And then 10 meters later, there's a speed camera. And I'm like, oh, you fucking dogs. You got me. Just as I looked down to see what the GPS was doing, it changed from 60 to 50. I didn't see the sign because I was looking at my fucking GPS. Straight through the speed camera, got me. Double demerits because it's fucking Easter long weekend. 13 kilometers over. Come home. Like, that's annoying. I was like stewing the whole way home. Fucking speed cameras. I've gone, I've got a full license, so however long, I haven't had demerit points in God knows how long. I can't even remember. Get home. There's mail at home from my parents' house that they dropped off while I was away. Open the mail. Oh, it's because they were a bit on the way on a cruise, right? So they just get home, give me some mail that's been up at their house. The cruise was a month long. The mail's probably been there for a month. Open the mail. Oh, your license is suspended because you didn't pay this fine for not voting, which the thing that pisses me off about this is I did fucking vote. I had to do an absentee vote because for the second time now, I've gone down to vote and I haven't been on the electoral roll. So I'm like, well, I had this conversation with you last time and I got a fine last time and then I appealed the fine. They admitted that they were wrong, said they'd put me on the electoral roll, wiped my fine, went down to vote 8 months later, still not on the electoral roll, did another absentee vote, obviously got another fine because the absentee vote went to a place where I'm not on the electoral roll because I'm supposed to be on it here. Didn't get the fine because it went to my parents' house. My parents were on a cruise. Didn't pay the fine. Didn't appeal the fine because I didn't know I had it. License got suspended. Drove to the Central Coast. Got a double demerit fine, but I wasn't supposed to be driving. So now Em got fucking so annoyed because she has to take the points because I obviously can't say that I was driving. So I have to say that she was driving. And she's like, I've never had demerit points in my whole life. I don't want to do this. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Unless they bring up the image, they're looking like, sorry, Em, you do not have a full ginger beard.
No, it's from behind.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be from behind because it's, yeah, it's got to be. And plus, our windows are tinted as fuck, so.
Yeah. What a shit show.
Oh, dude, so that was a shit show and a half. But footy itself was really good. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of fun running on the field. I love being on the field, so that was good. We got the Tuesday off this week.
Yep.
Off training for that, and then back at our home ground on Thursday. So we've been kind of training at our secondary field during the preseason because the Newcastle Jets use our main field.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that their season's over, we can go back to our main field on Thursday, which is probably the best field / facilities in the whole area. There's like 3 home sheds. There's like a home sheds, a media room, and then like I don't know what they call the third room, but it's like a half change room. It's like a transition room. So the way it works then is because there's multiple games on the field at the same time, one team will get ready in the main sheds, and then they go out to play. Then the team that's on after them, so like say the 17s go out, right? They use the sheds, they go out to play. While they're playing in the first half, the 19s will go into the sheds, start getting strapped and get their shit ready. And then when the 17s have halftime, they come back and they go into this little transition room, which is like a half shed, and that's where they do halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then that has a door. They're all kind of connected by these little tunnel doors. So then when the game's over, then they go back into the main shed, and then the 19s are going to the transition shed, and then they move from the transition shed into the media room to do the interviews and shit, and then they go out through the media room so that all the teams can just rotate through the sheds and there's never any crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking pretty professional setup, dude. It's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so keen to get back there. They've got full rehab, recovery rooms and stuff at the fields as well with like ice baths and shit set up. So
yeah,
you can get stuck into some of that after training, which is cool.
Nice.
And I'm probably going to start using so I'll just go to training like an hour early, do my concessions for the week there, then do like a little ice bath, recovery shower, get changed into training gear, and then do that while I'm there. So I have nice facilities.
Nice.
So I'm pretty pumped about that. Training wise, the weekend was actually really good too.
Tell me more.
Friday Arvo after got home from training, home from footy, Em was pretty keen to do a little conditioning session.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down to the local soccer fields, which is just around the corner from our place, and I ran us through like a little bit of a introductory sprint conditioning session.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do any like chest to ground stuff. It was literally, or any change of direction. It was just straight line sprinting. And we did 11 20s, 8 40s, 6 60s, and 3 100s. So it worked out 1.5 Ks of sprinting.
Yep. Nice.
And we did, so we did the 20s on the 30-second, the 60s on the 45, the 40s on the 45, the 60s on the minute, and then the 100s on the minute as well.
Yeah, nice.
So, and that was pretty fun. Took about 40 minutes-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday morning, we went for a little functional strength and conditioning session at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And she just did my session my little program that I'm following at the moment, which is a little bit more geared towards athleticism over anything else.
Yeah.
A little bit of strength thrown in there, a little bit of like muscle endurance, a bit of jumping, a bit of throwing, a bit of change of direction.
Yeah.
Just general athletic qualities.
Nice.
Did some deadlifts. Felt good.
Nice. I'm thinking about potentially taking my training back out to 5 days and kind of doing like 3 sort of like strength / powerlifting focus, and then having 2 as like conditioning sessions, but having the conditioning sessions to be more like power and conditioning. So it's like throwing, jumping, and then like effort work.
I
Which I reckon would be a lot of fun, because I kind of figure I'm like, I know from like a body composition, I've always felt the best when I sort of hover around 91, 92. Body composition looks pretty mean at that weight as well. Like I know I'm definitely probably sitting a little bit fatter than I need to be at the moment, which, you know, is what it is. But I think if I can get back down to like, 91, 92-ish, should be in a pretty good position to feel good, move good, and hopefully do some pretty silly things in a few different realms. Like, I'd like to be able to get back to a point where I could dunk.
I think you should do that.
Mm.
Just from a personal perspective on how good you feel when you train that way. I think a lot of people either have never done it, so they don't realize how good they could feel, or forget. Like I know personally, I forgot how actually fucking great it feels to be a little bit more athletic and a little bit more
conditioned.
Not even conditioned. I think maybe less fragile is probably the best term. Like I found when I was strictly focusing on top end strength, like when you're close to a meet and you're like, you've been training hyper specific during, your prep, and as closer to the meet gets, the closer, the more specificity you do and the less other stuff you do. So, you get really good at squatting and benching and deadlifting. But I know for me, I often felt very fragile outside of those movement patterns. It was almost like if I took a step to the side too quickly, I was like, oh, the adductors aren't loving that at the moment. Or like if I didn't focus on, what I was doing with my shoulders, they'd get all jacked up, or my knee would feel funky. If you turn the wrong way, your fucking back hurts because you're just used to going forward and backwards, and that's it. Whereas I know, thinking back when I was in my prime athletic days, when I was playing a lot of footy and I was training that way solely, I was still very strong. But I could also run, and I could move sideways, and I could get folded over in a tackle, and I didn't feel like I was going to break. I could change directions. I felt kind of light on my feet, and I could run a fucking 16.3 beat test or something at 115 kilos. I literally felt invincible. It's a very contrasting feeling.
Yeah, like it was weird. Like I remember, this would be going back to, I reckon I would have been maybe 21 or 22. So obviously, very different me. I remember one Christmas night, I was like, it was literally about 7 o'clock, like on the night of Christmas. And I was just like, oh, I'm just like bored. I kind of like want to go for a run. And this is kind of like when I did a lot more like just general training, a lot more sort of like CrossFit styled-esque stuff. And where we were living at the time, I like kind of like mapped out where I wanted to run. It was like 4.98K. It's pretty much like doorstep to doorstep. I'm like, yeah, it's close enough to 5K. I'll go run it. And I'll see how quickly I can run it. Mind you, I hadn't actually run properly in, I want to say, like, so again, like I competed like high level track and field when I was in school. I'd probably say I hadn't run properly since school. But I literally went out and ran it, and I think I was done in like 23 minutes for like almost 5K.
Yeah.
And
did it feel good, or did it feel like shit?
No, it felt awesome because it was raining.
Yeah, I love that.
So like running in the rain, I fucking love it. Yeah. I was like, I could just like run. I could push myself really hard because I didn't feel like I was overheating. because the rain felt like it was keeping me nice and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, like, it was kind of fun. Like, it was kind of like childlike fun for me at the time. Whereas, like, the thought now of like having to actually go for a run, I'm like, oh god, I feel like I would just almost like suffer, and like in a point where it's like I don't need to suffer that much from doing like basic day-to-day things.
Yeah, so that's kind of the fuck it, let's go into that. I wasn't going to talk about it, but fucking let's do it. For everyone that's listening, I fucking didn't train for like 3 weeks. It's like not a single session. I wasn't going to talk about it, but fuck it. So during that time, I was fucking just, I just didn't want to train. Hey, like I was just over it. I wasn't enjoying it. I was trying to do, I was trying to maintain a level of strength, and I was doing like the hypertrophy stuff, and I just was like, I'm not fucking enjoying this. Like, I'm getting really bored. I have a bunch of other stuff that I'd rather be doing. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of podcasts. We've had guests booked in. There's a lot of like back end stuff that once we stop recording, like I jump on and do like all of the clips and the fucking uploads and the fucking thumbnails and this and that, and then messaging people, plus then client work and the other stuff that I'm building out at the moment, which I haven't really spoken publicly about, but I will shortly. And there's just a lot going on that I'm really excited about. So I was like diving harder and harder into that. And then the less enjoyment that I was getting from training, the more I was like finding enjoyment elsewhere, and then weighing up like the time away from the things work-wise that I'm really enjoying and seeing a great return on, to go and do this thing that I'm not necessarily enjoying so much. And I just really couldn't figure out why. Like, it's one of the first times in my life that I've even really had a break from training. And I was like, I guess I started to avoid thinking about why I wasn't enjoying it, because I was like, fuck, if I don't think about it, like maybe just one day I'll start enjoying it again. And then I was like, no, fuck, that's dumb, dude. Like, let's just identify after your pep talk some things that you might enjoy, and your training doesn't have to always be like qualified by heavy or light. There are other things that you can focus on outside of that. And that, when you said that to me, it really got me thinking. I'm like, yeah, like I don't always have to be trying to push strength or always trying to push hypertrophy. And I'm like, thinking back to when I felt my best and when I enjoyed training the most. And it was like, at that time when I was training the way that I've started training again now, I literally felt invincible. I felt like if I wanted to wake up and go for a run, I could. If I wanted to go and like squat heavy, I could. If I wanted to fucking go for a surf, I could. Like whatever was happening, I could just be like, I can do that. Like, I'm physically capable to handle shit without breaking. Can I throw a ball? Yeah, I can throw a ball. Like, fuck, 2 months ago, if I tried to throw a ball, my shoulder would have dislocated. So I just wanted to feel like I could move properly. Wanted to feel like I could fuck without like sweating all over the place and having a purple face and thinking like I was going to have a heart attack. Like, all of these things that you take for granted when you're fit. And
did I hear you correctly just said?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Dude, it got bad. Like, there was times I had to like have a lay down on the ground because I felt like I was going to die.
Nice.
So it's nice to not feel like that anymore.
Yep.
And the more I train, like the more I'm starting to, like, I was running water on Friday. And the first few times I ran onto the field, I was like, holy fuck, this is going to be a long day. Like, I'm just like launching my legs in the forward direction and my feet are just like landing on the ground. Like, that's what running is at the moment. There's no spring to it. There's no change of direction. It was like, I'm going to run in this direction and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to change, and I'm going to run in that direction, and that's how I'm going to get to my destination. There was no curvature.
Yeah, I remember. So back in, I think it was the end of 2014, I went over to Brazil for one of my best mates' weddings. And at the time, he was still going through his selection for like the US Air Force. So he was still doing like heaps of running to like be fit enough for the testing for that. And he had been like my training partner when I was like 17, 18 sort of thing. I think all the way through until I was maybe like 20 or so, like one of my best friends. And naturally when we're over there, he's like, dude, if I've got to go running, you're fucking coming too. And I'm like, I don't need to fucking run for this shit, man. Like that's a you problem, not a me problem. He goes, you're the dickhead that came over here with me. Therefore, you're going to be the dickhead that runs with me. I'm like, oh, fuck, all right. So, like, have you ever been to Brazil?
No.
So, where we were staying, it's all fucking hills, like, on an incline like this. So, he's like, oh, we're going to do, like, hill sprints. We're going to do, like, 8 efforts. It's about 400 meters uphill. We're literally just going to run up. We're going to walk back down, and we're going to do this, like, 8 times. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. And the first few that I did, it was just like fucking like heavy as fuck on my feet. And he's like, dude, he goes, you're running behind me and I can hear you running behind me because you're so loud when you hit like have contact on the ground. I'm like, yeah, I know. I haven't run in fucking years. This sucks.
Yeah.
And then obviously like having the background in track that I do have, like obviously like I know how to run quite well. And he's literally like, he goes, dude, by the third run, he goes, I couldn't hear you anymore. He goes, you were that light on your feet. And you'd obviously found like a really nice like contact point in the toe where it was just like strike up, strike up, strike up. And it was just like, as soon as you hit, it was just like you were over and ticking over really quick. But I think the adaptations that can occur from that happen a lot faster than people think that they can. You know, I think people get, it's like, I think cardio is a really good example. People think that to get these really amazing cardiovascular like adaptations, they need to do cardio for like 3-4 months straight. It's like, no. Like cardio adaptations can come in the matter of weeks. And then the amount of maintenance work you need to do thereafter is significantly less than what it took to get there. And I think that's somewhat similar in the realm of strength as well. Like it might take, obviously, like the time it takes to build the strength might take a little bit longer, but the amount of work actually required to maintain that level of strength, I'm like, that's really not that much. Like the amount of times I'll be like, oh, I haven't lifted, over 70% for X amount of time, but bang, I've still hit a single at 90% pretty comfortably. I've still got a pretty good maintenance level of strength. So I think when people are sort of getting back into like a bit of running, a bit of jumping, that sort of thing, I think regardless of whether it's like whatever the athletic endeavor is, when you transition back into that component or that skill or whatever it might be, it's like, cool, a bit of gentle reintroduction followed by a bit of exposure, and you'll be surprised at how fast either it'll come back or that it'll develop.
Yeah, I've already found that, dude. Like I ran that one game, so there was a fair bit of running during the game. I was on and off the field quite a bit during the 80 minutes.
Yep.
And then came home, did that sprint session. By the end of the sprint session, I was feeling pretty fucking good. Like running wise, like not great, but significantly better. And then the session on Saturday, I had started as part of the kind of warm up movement prep was box jumps, and I was doing those. I was like, I'm floating. Like I feel good here. Like I feel light. I feel like I'm explosive. I was landing soft up on the box. Like it wasn't clunky at all. Did some banded rotations to finish, and I was like, fuck, like I got some power here through the hips, and I'm like actually moving and I'm rotating, and like this feels good.
Yeah.
And then I fucking mowed the lawn yesterday. I was like, fuck, this is not bothering me at all. Like I was up and down doing the edges, mowed, got on my hands and knees, pulled weeds out. I was like, fine. like I feel great. And I feel like this is a good lesson that the further that you train one quality, there are going to be sacrifices that come. It's like when you play a video game and you get a certain amount of points to put towards certain attributes. And the more attributes you put on strength, the less attributes you have to put on speed. The more that you put on speed, the less you have to put on power.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so many points to go around. And so, I feel like it's a good lesson for me. I've literally made the decision, and I feel quite comfortable saying that, like, I don't know if I'll ever chase like top end strength again, because I'm just not sure I'm willing to make that sacrifice of feeling like absolute garbage in all other aspects anymore. I feel like maybe that time has passed for me, and I can focus on helping other people do that, and just focus on myself feeling a little bit better and moving a little bit better and being a little bit more like athletic. But then in saying that, like, you never know. Never say never.
I reckon with enough peer pressure from me, I could convince you to do it.
But here's the thing, right? Like, if I do, and I know that you and I have spoken about doing the same comp potentially next year.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean that I have to sacrifice everything else.
No. And this
like,
is
I feel pretty comfortable saying that I could rock up to a comp. I could do a prep, not sacrifice too much of those other qualities, still feel fairly comfortable. Maybe not push to like 100%, but maybe rock up at like 90% and still pull 310, 320, still squat 260 in sleeves, bench 160.
I reckon you could have a really fun time experimenting with your training, where you could go, you know what, how varied can I keep my training and still push my top end strength to X point? It's like, how fast
I'm still doing doubles and triples at 90%.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it hasn't gone. It's just like, could I do 100% now? No, of course not.
But you need to do 100% now.
No,
that's always the caveat.
Yeah, it's like, if I needed to, I could probably get there pretty quick. So, yeah, it's quite interesting, man. I'm really enjoying it. So
it's nice,
and I think it kind of like leads into the topic that we wanted to talk about this week really nicely as well. To be honest, was off seasons for powerlifters, and like kind of like what that looks like, and is that a thing? And if it is a thing, like, what should it look like? Or is it just like prep, or is this like training the same year round? I don't know. There's lots of different schools of thought. Where do you fall on it?
So I think it depends on the athlete that you're working with. I think if you've got a general day-to-day person who kind of like, they enjoy powerlifting, but they're like, I don't really want to take it really serious, I don't think they need an overly aggressive off season. I think they could probably benefit from maybe a little bit more like bodybuilding style training in their off season, like quote unquote, like their off season, and a bit of like base level variability. But I don't think you would need to address it too intently. But I feel like if you have a high level athlete, that is, pretty high up in the rankings, and they're quite a good powerlifter, and it's like, yep, I'm going to take, like, perfect example is like, Josh and I have a plan in place at the moment for this year, and then leading into next year. And we've even spoken about the objectives that he has that he would like to tick off in the next decade, which, they're pretty grand goals. But I think to be great, you need to have grand goals. But as I said to him, I'm like, there are certain attributes that I would like to have in place so that as we push your off season, where I generally fall for a lot of off season stuff for powerlifters is I look at training to be on a spectrum. You've got like general and specificity, and obviously in the midst of a prep, you're down the end of specificity, and the objective of an off season is to bring you back towards that sort of generalized approach, and just sort of like restore range of motion, build a little bit of muscle, do a bit of recon work if it's required, and do a bit of conditioning work if it's required to then help facilitate the body's ability to handle volume. So for like, again, if we use Josh as an example, he has 4 weight days a week and then 1 conditioning day a week. Not an outrageous amount of training in the grand scheme of things. Like, he did read his conditioning stuff backwards. So instead of 20-second efforts and 40 seconds recovery, he thought it was 40 seconds effort with 20-second recovery. And he's like, no wonder I felt like a bag of shit. I'm like, dude, yuck.
Go deep end.
Yeah. But I think
he's done it though.
But as I said to him, like,
now that he's done it, he has to stick to that ratio.
Exactly. But like on a little bit of a tangent, like if I look to the basketballers that I work with, one of the conditioning drills that I would run them through would be like, it was like a 10-minute EMOM sort of thing. So like 10 rounds, each round like starts on the minute. And then like you've got your task to complete within that 60 seconds. The faster you complete it, the more rest you get, the slower you are, the less rest you get. And what it was 30 seconds like pitter patters on the baseline. And then at the 30-second mark, bang, it's a sprint up and down. The quicker you get back, the more rest you get. So they were averaging around about 20 seconds rest. And within like, the first time they did that as a team, they're like, yeah, that was pretty brutal. And then the following week when we went into training, they saw 10 minutes on the clock. They're like, please tell us we're not doing that fucking pitter patter shit again. I'm like, oh yeah, you are. But literally within like 3 weeks of doing that, I had one of the guys come up to me and they're like, man, like, I've already noticed like I feel lighter and faster on my feet. I'm like, cool. Mm-hmm. That's the objective that we've been after. Like getting them used to like minimal contact time in the pitter patter, being light on the toes, so that if they need to bang change direction, they can. But sort of like coming back to Josh, I think it's.
Do you guys run suicides?
I like suicides. They haven't been running a whole lot of them though.
That's what they're called, right? Where you kind of hit every line.
So you kind of go like baseline to like 3-point line, back to baseline, half court, back, opposite 3-point line, back, and then full court and back.
Baseline, yeah.
Yeah.
We watched Coach Carter on the weekend.
Yeah, fucking such a good movie.
Oh, dude, do I want to talk about that? Yeah, fuck it. I cried twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to like, over in the corner, like hide it from Em so she didn't see. She didn't know. She won't listen to this, but if she
I'm all about fucking crying in movies and TV shows.
Yeah. She's only seen me cry twice in my whole life, our whole relationship, and neither of those were in movies. So I had to conceal this. But yeah, dude, that's a fantastic movie. But he makes that guy run like a fucking 1,000 suicides. And it's like, what's a suicide? And then I explained it to him, and I was like, that's what Ben does. Makes these basketball players just run up the court.
Well, I mean, it does train a lot of qualities that I quite like for basketballs. It trains acceleration, trains deceleration, it trains change of direction. Like, it does a lot from an athletic standpoint. They just fucking suck.
Do you know what a Malcolm is?
No.
So a Malcolm is a fairly infamous football conditioning drill.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, there's lots of different ways to do it, but the way that I've kind of always been exposed to it is you start on the 10 and you go with your chest on the ground and you go to the 20, chest on the ground, back to the goal line, chest on the ground, back to the 10, chest on the ground. That's 1. and then so you'll do like as many of those reps as prescribed. So like usually a couple of ways to do it is like they'll make you do like a set of 6 in under a minute, and so like you're like moving, and then on the last one they'll like kick a footy down to the opposite goal line, and you'll have to like do a kick chase and then do a defensive set straight off the back of it. That's pretty brutal. But one of the ones that I've been giving the boys lately is called a Malcolm in the middle. This is quite fun. So imagine the drill that I just explained to you. But instead of doing it like that, you start on the goal line, you sprint all the way out to the 60, chest on the ground, come back to the 40, chest on the ground, go back to the 50, chest on the ground, and then sprint back to the goal line. So it's like a Malcolm, but there's like 2 long sprints in between.
Brutal.
So I've been making them do that on the minute.
I'm sure they love you for that.
Yes, anyway, enough of our sadistic conditioning drills. Back to Josh.
Yeah, so like I said to Josh, like, you know, I think he was saying he's like, you know, been training for like 7 years, competing for like 5 of those, and never really actually had off seats. And I'm like, cool. Now is a great opportunity for you to take the foot off the gas a little bit, pivot, redirect your attention elsewhere to build yourself into a better athlete so that you can go and achieve, you know, the like aspiring goals that you have. But I feel
like you're right. I feel like this is the perfect time for Josh to do that.
Yeah, like
I feel like from an outside perspective looking in, I feel like from an outside perspective looking in that Josh has maybe like eked out every kind of bit of strength that he has in him at the moment, and has expressed that. And I feel like this is a good time to go back, take a little bit of a step back, and build more to then give him the opportunity to then go and express more, if that makes sense. Yeah,
like, you know, obviously a lot of the work that we're going to be doing is a lot more rep-based work. As I said to him, like, you know, when we started up again, he was like, oh, like, I'd love to front squat 200. I'm like, yeah, like, you probably could, but that just doesn't need to be a focus for us at the moment because we have other things that we need to work on. Like, everything that we're doing is like tempo or like just like shitty positions and just making it really hard for him to like have control over the movement so that when we then do take him back into like more sort of like comp spec stuff, or even if it's just like more efficient barbell variations, that he has the ability to withstand any sort of turbulence that might come his way. Like, you know, Josh and I've had the conversation around like with his squat, like if he gets pinched a little bit forward, he has no room to recover and you know, finish the lift off. So I said to him, like, specifically, like, that is going to be one thing where, like, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff that requires you to like hinge forward, bend forward, and actually, you know, put yourself in positions that aren't that favorable so that your body can learn how to recover. It's why, like, you know, he's not doing any sumo work at the moment. It's all, you know, pause conventional. It's all RDLs.
His conventionals looks nice.
It really does.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like, his leverages give him a fucking beautiful sumo, but I think if we can build the capacity for him to have a big conventional deadlift as well, like, obviously, it doesn't need to be, like, you know, a high 200 kilo lift by any means, but I think if we can get him to a point where, you know, he can build some big fat erectors on his back, and actually start to fill up. I mean, the other thing, like, he's that young where he's got the time where he can build out his frame. Like, I feel like the older that you get as a lifter and the more time you have in the gym to allow all of like your muscles, your connective tissues, all that sort of thing, allow them to actually mature under load. I feel like you can build a pretty robust musculoskeletal system, like without any extra interventions. So yeah, I think the big focus that we kind of have, like as far as like Josh goes, is like movement variability and just bringing him really far away from anything comp spec. But on the other end of that, like I've got one of the girls I'm working with at the moment, Ro. Like, I've known Ro a very long time. We had a really short comp prep together. And I was kind of like, I wasn't really sure when she signed up if we would be then like continuing after the comp or if it was just a little bit of like, a little bit of a run up and sort of a layup for the comp. But obviously she's like, yep, cool. Like, I'm probably looking at nationals in November. You've got a bit of an off-season period with me. I'm like, fucking amazing.
Yep.
And I said to her, I'm like, there are things that I would absolutely want to do for your off-season. I think the approach for her is a little bit different though, because the objective is, cool, we're going to use your off season to make you a better powerlifter, not necessarily to make you a better athlete. So some of the variations I'm giving her, I'm like, cool, I'm just trying to give you exposure to positions that I want to try and transition you to. Like, she is a classic wide grip bencher. It's like pointer finger to like the knurling, as wide as you can legally bench. And so naturally, her first variation post-comp was close grip bench.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate response was, oh my God, I feel so much more controlled coming down. This feels really strong. I'm like, fuck yeah, amazing. So that's when I kind of like to go, comp spec here, off-season spec here. Can we find something in the middle that will marry the two up and provide an even stronger outcome? I think the other really like underutilized aspect of an off-season is time to try shit.
Yeah.
Like, I remember many, many, many years ago when I had a coach, I was told specifically that there was only one way to bench press, and that anything outside of that parameter was not strong and was more or less a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
I then remember going through a period of time after finishing up with said coach where I was like, well, fuck it. To prove a point, I'm going to go off and bench how I think I'm going to be strongest. And I added 5 kilos to my bench press.
Nice.
Now, This is something that Jordan had been telling me for like about 2 years or so. And he's like, dude, you don't have the active range of motion to justify benching as wide as you're currently benching. This is why your bench sucks. And I was like, oh, cool.
Guess you were right.
And then, like when I then went and so again, I went from like, a 140 bench as like an all-time PB to like benching 145 in training, like a piece of piss. I said it to him. He was just like, see, I told you. I'm like, I know. So I think like in the context of row, like there are things I want to try, which I said to him, like, look, I think this will make really good, like a good use of time in your off season, kind of trying to dabble in some other positions. Again, like Ro has wild leverages when it comes to her deadlift. Like her deadlift is always going to be like her strongest lift by far. And I'm pretty so for example, she almost pulled a triple bodyweight deadlift off like an 8-week prep, having had severe gastro the week leading in. She weighed in at 56 kilos and she pulled 150.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's nearing that sort of triple bodyweight range. But I'm pretty confident that if we get a really good run coming into nationals, that we should probably be able to look at going like 125, 65, potentially 170.
Okay.
Which as a, so we may look at like where she kind of like sits body weight wise. I'm like, we could potentially do 56s. We could potentially do 60s. What would you prefer? And she's like, well, I usually hover around like 56 and a half, 57. I'm like, well, if you're there, you may as well just cut the half kilo and do the 56s.
Yeah.
So we may look at a bit of a YOLO comp in, I think it's June or July. It's at the end of one of those months.
Yeah.
And it'll literally just be cool, we're going in purely to qualify for the lighter weight class, so that she has the option to do 56s or 60s come November.
Yeah. If she's that close, that'll be a pretty easy cut too.
That'll literally just be cool, just taper things back, don't eat in the morning and take a big shit.
Yeah.
But I think, looking at like off seasons as a whole, I think for the most part, I will utilize it under two categories. And one is either promoting movement variability and restoring other attributes, or I will look at it in the sense of, hey, there's a massive chance for skill acquisition here, and using it as a really big like learning curve and really diving into like, cool, what's actually going to suit us best, and not necessarily what suits us best in the, within first week it's going to feel great. It might take 4 to 6 weeks for us to get enough of a run with the exposure to find out what's actually going to suit.
Yeah.
How do you like to approach it?
Yeah, super similar, dude. Like, I think it always depends on who you're working with and the level of the lifter, and I guess like ultimately what they're trying to achieve out of having you as the coach, and what their goals are. There's yeah, I don't really work with anyone at the moment that's like not serious. So, but in the past, like I would have maybe just like general population client that didn't want to compete, or just kind of wanted to compete sometimes just for fun, but most of the time it was just like training or body composition style goals. I would still plan it, but maybe it would just be a little bit less planny, because I didn't want to like plan out 12 months of training cycles and periodization for them to just be like 2 months in, oh, I want to focus on growing my glutes more this month. Then you've got a delt specialized focus for the next 2 months, but no, let's just do glutes. And then, all that planning is just kind of out the window. So more with those clients, it was planned a little bit more like current block, next block, and then just rolled through a little bit that way. So it's more so like 8 weeks in advance, I guess. 8 to 12 weeks at a time, so that I wasn't doubling up on work. But at the moment, I'm pretty lucky. I work pretty much every single one of my clients except one is on the more serious end of wanting to do well in powerlifting, or not necessarily like at a high level at the moment, but some of them are working towards that level. So we're treating them as if they are at that level, because that's where they want to be. And one thing that I, offer with my coaching, and I've spoken about this before, it's no secret, is if you text me your stuff, like I get back to you straight away. Like if I'm not doing a podcast or I'm not at football training, on WhatsApp, so I can give you real time feedback. You don't have to wait until next week to implement the feedback. And one of the ways that I'm able to do that is, obviously that's super time intensive. Like I'm on my phone all day pretty much giving feedback. I think Em put a story up last week on Instagram where I was at the beach. We were getting bacon and egg roll, and I was giving Dwayne a form review. If you message me, like I'm going to get back to you. And the way that I can do that is I preload and front load a lot of my work when I onboard someone, or at the start of a season, or after a competition, I'll do a call with a client and we'll plan out the next like 12 months. So with most of my clients, it's I have the conversation with them in powerlifting and strength sports, and even hypertrophy. This is a long-term thing. This isn't going to happen in 5 weeks. This isn't probably going to happen in 5 months. It's more of a like 12 months, 24 months, 36, 48 months, 5 years, fucking lifetime pursuit that you're always going to be on. And the longer you can commit to something, the longer we set our timelines, the better your results are going to be. So I like to front load a lot of that work and then plan my periodization models, or like my macros and mesos and micro cycles based around the competitions that we choose about 12 months out. And we can kind of plan, even if the comp calendar isn't out, we can plan what month we think the comps are going to be in based on what month they were in last year. They don't tend to change too much. So I've got a template built out, because we all know that, much like everything else, I live on a spectrum.
Do you really?
I think I do.
I would never have guessed that with you.
Yeah, so I like to plan things. So I've built out a spreadsheet that has, and shout out to Brandon for this, because he gave me the framework to build off of this a little while ago. But I've kind of built out a macro, micro, and meso, or macro, meso, micro cycle framework that has all of the months of the year, and then below that it'll have the training cycle. So it might be like prep, it might be like
trend, day bowl.
Yeah, like just the basics.
Yeah, bit of test, just cruise mode.
Just the cruise mode. So it'll have like January, February, March, April might be your prep months, and then like May might be the month that the competition's in, and then like June might be like a transition month back into like another prep phase, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Or a long off season if they're only doing one comp. If they're doing two comps, I might call those 4 months prep, and then the one below that will have like a training phase, and then that prep will be broken up into 1 month might be a restoration phase coming off the back of the last comp, and then the next month might be like a hypertrophy month. The month after that will be a hypertrophy month, then a strength month, then a peak month, then the competition month, and it'll kind of go like that. So that gives me then like a general overview of the year as a whole, then how the months break down. And then I've got, within those months, what are the training qualities that we want to work on? So like if it's like a strength block, like what's the strength quality that we're working on? Like, are we working on like power? Are we working on like top end strength? Are we working on like rep work? Like, kind of how do we break that down? And then there's a separate little spreadsheet that I've made that goes down, and it has each separate month. So then say we've got like I said before, like January, February, March might be like prep. And then say like I've got within that, so say like January week 1 might be like a strength block. So I'll go month, January, week 1, training phase, strength. Periodization of strength might be like max effort and power output, right? They might be like the two qualities that we're looking at. Then I'll have like day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the day, I'll be like, what's the purpose of that day? One day might be like heavy bench, shoulder stability, and back accessories. Day 2 might be squat, secondary hinge, leg accessories, etc. Right? For all the 7 days. And then you'll have like, under that, I'll then have the reps and sets. So like, what kind of rep schemes are we working in January? And then under that, I'll have like, what intensity should we be looking at working at? Like, say January might be 75 to 78% for weird numbers, right? So then when I take that whole overview, and then I can just front load programming from there, because I have the whole overview of the year. So I might take Ben, and Ben might be like, my goal is to bench 170. We can say, cool, this is where we think we might want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What are the qualities that we need to improve on for that to actually become a reality? Now let's reverse engineer that into the cycles that we've got built here. Okay, what are your current maxes? What are the percentages? These are the rep schemes. It's all built out. And then it's just like from your initial program that you get, based on then how you move in the video reviews that you give me, I can then be like, I can look at them and say, okay, these are the things that we're going to need to look at progressing. These are the things that we're going to need to look at maybe swapping a movement pattern here and there, maybe regressing something to build back up. And then once I get that initial block out of the way, I can then program out pretty far in advance based on like how you're moving. Yeah, and that's generally how I'll do it. So then doing it that way gives me then the freedom to make adjustments as required, but then also not spend a fuckload of time every week programming, and I can just spend that time coaching and giving like video feedback on how I want you to move and how I want you to actually do things, because a lot of the work has just been like not preloaded, but almost like it's already like there's a template built out based on your timeline.
Yeah.
Based on how you're moving, we can then just plug and play things that I know are going to work, and then we can go from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally how I'll do it. Did that make any sense, or was that just like super fucking autistic?
It was both. It was autistic, okay. But because I also exist on the spectrum, I'm like, oh, I understand.
Okay. Yes. I'm fucked.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick.
You know when you start talking and then, like, we've obviously got a timer that we can look at, and then I just start talking and then I look down and I'm like, holy fuck, that was 15 minutes. I don't even know what I said.
It's like, did I take any breaths in that moment?
Did I? I don't know.
Probably not.
But yeah, that's how I like to look at things. And I'm not sure. I know that's a thing that I've kind of got from other sports, not so much powerlifting, and then kind of implemented that into powerlifting, I guess.
Well, I think this is like the really interesting thing about you and I is obviously like our backgrounds are sports at high levels outside of powerlifting. And I think that because we do have, like, this is the thing I always find it really interesting is like, you know, obviously, like, what is the purpose of hiring a coach for the most part?
Well, it depends who you are. But
like, I would generally say, like,
I think like to get better is probably that's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah, like I would say it's to fast track an outcome. So obviously, like, you know, we've been through the weeds. We know where things are going to pop up and be like, oh, hello. We can help people avoid that sort of thing. But I think at some point there becomes a place in time where it's like, cool, like, you know, what you and I have been through in order to get to where we are, if we're trying to, you know, paraphrase that essentially for people and give them a quicker route to the treasures that they seek, you know, if they miss out on some of the things that do pop up and kind of give them a bit of grief, it's like, cool, they lose some of that learning experience within that because they've been kind of like, it's been like formulated to try and avoid that sort of thing. Whereas sometimes those things that do pop up and give you grief yield the best like growth opportunities, so to speak. And I think we're like, you know, where you and I obviously have our background in terms of like high level sports external to powerlifting is like, if I think back to basketball, when I was playing at my highest level, like games were fucking intense. And there was a lot on the line, and there were games that we lost that we shouldn't have lost, and there were games that we won that we probably shouldn't have won, and there were games that were just like clusterfucks. But as far as like like it was weird. Like other sports are always segmented in like, hey, cool, like we have our competition season, we have a preseason leading into that, and then we have like our like sort of like post-season stuff where it's like it's not as structured. It's preparation work so that come tryouts for next year, you guys pretty much know that you're going to be on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's prep work, compete, pre-prep work, compete, and it sort of like follows that cycle all the way through juniors into seniors and all that sort of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where like powerlifting being what it is in the sense that it's not as like, I wouldn't say powerlifting is like a typical sport. I think it's, you know, it's one of the sports where your training, like the gym training that you do, like your S&C work is your sport. Whereas like if you're a basketball, like you want time on the court, you need to be practicing, you know, free throws and 3-pointers and that sort of shit. Not necessarily how much can I get my squat up in 12 weeks of preseason.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead. I think that's a trap, though. I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into with strength sports is not looking at it. That they look at it through too small of a scope or like too zoomed in, because the gym is the sport. That's right, and that's a really easy trap to fall into, because when we talk about S&C for athletes, for example, the gym is one part of it, and then they've got field work, they've got the game itself, they've got the mental aspect, they've got all of these other things that they have to juggle. So you have to take this approach where everything is planned out and everything takes into account the other things that need to be done. So you're not detracting. Your gym's not detracting from your field. Your field's not detracting from your game. Your game's not. It all ties into each other. It has to all tie or should tie into each other perfectly. Or as perfectly as possible. And to do that, there needs to be reverse engineering from the most important thing backwards, which is game day backwards. All the way from, okay, if we're in season, game day is here. Now we have game day -1, we have game day -2, we have game day -3, which is also game day +3 or +2. Then we have game day -4, which is also game day +2. So then you're factoring in fatigue levels, you're factoring in all of these things on how far away and how post-game you are. But then even from a preseason where you're factoring in, okay, now we're 1 month out from season. Now we're 2 months out from season and 1 month out from trials. We're 4 months out from trials and 5 months out from season. So like everything is reverse engineered from the most important thing. And I feel like that doesn't get done enough in strength sports, because the gym is the sport. So it's almost, you can kind of get lost in the fact that there are still other qualities that you need to work on inside of the gym that aren't necessarily your sport.
Do you want to know why I reckon that's the case?
Yeah.
So, for example, basketball season for us starts like this weekend coming up is the first game of the season. We have 16 weeks in a row or something like that of games. For say like powerlifting, for example, like we don't have 16 weekends in a row of competition. You might compete once or twice.
Right.
But I think the whole like zoomed in thing, I think when people go, oh, I'm just focusing on this 12 weeks of prep, they kind of go, I'm just going to train, do whatever I do here. Oh, 12 weeks of prep, smack bang in the guts here. I'm going to prep for this comp here. And then it's back to just kind of like throwing shit to the wall and actually not focusing on what do I need to do in order to be a better squatter? What do I need to do in order to be a better bencher? What do I need to do in order to be a better deadlifter? And how can I combine all of that together long term? Because again, this is where, even if I look back to my very early days of training, which goes back, I'm going to say, like, if I look back to when I first started in the gym, it's like 20 years ago. Even back then, I wasn't given like a specific program. It's kind of like you go in, you do your PT sessions, you lift some weights, and it's like, all right, cool, we'll see you next week. And we might try and build on that a little bit. But even when I first got into powerlifting, like I had a set program that I would follow that was designed to be like, cool, this is where we start, this is where we're looking at finishing, but it was just that 12 weeks. Whereas, you know, and again, like I'm going to shout someone out right now who we've shouted out before, but I think he does a fucking fantastic job, is Luke, of setting his powerlifters up to be able to go, hey, look, we've got a comp here. The objective after the comp for our off season is to build X, Y, and Z. And then we sort of have a point we're going to be looking at reaching before we then jump back into another prep. Like if I look at one of my clients, Danielle, I think her and I do a really, really good job of knowing how long we're going to be pushing for. Like, you know, we might sit there and go, hey, look, for example, we did 2 comps at the end of last year. We're sort of umming and ahhing as to whether or not we would potentially be looking at nationals this year. And then she kind of made the decision where she was like, you know what, competing doesn't align with my objectives at the moment. I still want to continue getting strong, but I would rather just like not have the pressure of comp prep on top of everything else I'm trying to do at the moment with like building a business and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, cool, if we don't have the pressure of competition, then I can set you some like audacious goals that we're going to look at achieving, because we may have a couple of weeks where, you know, things are in a position where we can push the envelope a little bit. And then maybe weeks when it's like, cool, we just need to maintain, like we have flexibility. So like I said to her, I'm like, look, I would like to see a 170 kilo deadlift this year. I would like to see 140 kilo squat, which she's very, very, very close to hitting that. And I would like to see an 80 kilo bench. Now, for a 67 kilo, so she competes like in 67s, for a natural 67.5 kilo female competitor to squat 140, bench 80, and deadlift 170, like that's not a bad fucking total.
Very good, yeah.
Like, but as far as like obviously now at a point where it's like cool, like we're essentially like in a prolonged off season. It's like, yeah, I probably do have like rep goals that I would like her to look at trying to hit without necessarily pushing absolute top end strength. Like if she cracks, like, so this week here is like her final heavy week. You know, she's got a top triple across each lift at like RPE 9. Her secondary bench day, she has 4x6 at 60 kilos on her bench press, which I'm expecting to be an absolute fucking cunt of a session for her. But I'm also expecting that like she's got enough grit behind her that I can say, hey, look, this is your objective for this week. This is what I need you to focus on, and she can go and do it. There are some athletes that you get where you can give them like, hey, this is your job, go and do your job, and they can go and do it. You've got other athletes where it's like, all right, we're going to run through step by step how to tie your shoelaces. Cool. In your left hand, grab the left shoelace. In your right hand, man. You grab the right shoelace. No, Nick, you dumb fuck. You grab the left shoelace in your right hand. You're now backwards. Start again.
No, you couldn't say that to that person. You would have to say, yeah, that's very good, Ben. Very good. Now what I just need you to do is just take it out of your right hand and just pop it into your left hand. Good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like,
that's coaching.
It is like, and this is the thing, like, you know, we all sit there and go, oh, we would love to have the clients that, you know, when you say jump, they just say how high, not being like, all right, well, cool. This is how you jump, or this is why I need you to jump, or like all the explanation. Like the reality is, as coaches, we are going to have some people that just go, absolutely, yep, no worries. I will follow commands blindly without question because that's what I'm paying you to do. And then you'll have other people where you have to explain to them word for word, this is exactly what you need to do, and any vagueness will be misinterpreted, and unless it's like hyper specific feedback, like they just don't take it on board. And again, as you said, like that is the nature of coaching. But I think when we can zoom out and like, again, for example with Danielle, like I can sit there and go, cool, well, if we've got the rest of the year to, you know, to look at, you know, giving things a good nudge and sort of seeing where things lay, why not set sort of like off-season rep work goal to sort of like determine like, cool, is our strength progressing in the way that we want it to, and is the rep work we're doing indicative that our top end strength is progressing without actually having to put you through that stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
I love
threes and fives are so fucking useful for powerlifters. Like if you can hit a triple, you could probably assume it's at roughly 90% of what you could hit for one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think taking that zoomed out approach is, look, So you and I talk about variability a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about off seasons and we talk about spending time away from comp specific things to get better as a powerlifter and to get better as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't variability just for fucking the sake of variability, just random shit. Each time you go into the gym, just doing some dumb fucking random shit with no progression model or no thought process behind why you're doing it or no desired outcome, just variability for variability's sake. That's not what I'm talking about when I say it, and I know you well enough to assume that's not what you're talking about either.
No, I like to throw shit at the wall and hope something sticks.
So do I, but not in terms of programming, just like actual shit.
Yeah, well, obviously that's what I meant as well.
Dude, in the jail, that's called bronzing up.
What?
Yeah, so most people will probably know I did a little stint as a prison officer on it was called an IAT team, so it's like a immediate action team. So when there's like fights or like just like if there's shit going down, like we got called. So we basically our job was we just sat in an office. There was 4 of us. We just sat in an office, just fucking around playing computer games and watching YouTube with our radios on, and we got to wear like cool overalls with like vests with tear gas and stuff in it. And we just sat around all day playing on the computer until there was a response call. And then we just fucking bolted out of our office to wherever the response was and dealt with it. And then went back to our office and did reports. That was it. That's all we did. So pretty cool job. But yeah, one of the things that the inmates do in jail quite often is called bronzing up. So like if they don't want to go to court or whatever, if they don't want to get taken out of their cell or if they're just deciding to be a little bit of a brat that day, they'll shit in their hands and then just paint themselves in poo, get naked and just paint themselves in poo. That's called bronzing up. So that then when you have to go into the cell to do a cell extraction, you have to just grab this like slippery poo eel and wrestle it to the ground.
Yuck.
Yeah, so I've had to do that a few times. So throwing shit at a wall, that's nothing.
See, when I think of like throwing poo at the wall, it's like the monkeys from Madagascar. We got the one who's like speaking in sign language. That was like, well, of course we're going to throw poo at them.
Yeah, so I don't like that approach, but I do like variability because I think it's important to be able to move a little bit more athletically outside of your competition prep season. So what taking this zoomed out approach and having a much broader overview of your whole kind of year, 2 years in advance does is it allows you to plan those game days that other athletes have every week and then have to plan game day -2, game day +1 sessions. You can do prep -6 months sessions, right? So you can have, all right, if my competition's here, this is my 12-week prep block. This is my pre-prep strength blocks, maybe. Okay, so now this is where I've got a 6-week block here that I can work on some other qualities. Okay, what do I need outside of a prep setting to be a better powerlifter? That might be maybe my back needs to be stronger. I know I did a post this morning about having a strong back being a good prerequisite to being a good powerlifter. Okay, maybe my back's weak. Let's fucking hammer my back. Let's do that. So it gives you the ability to have some foresight in the variability that you're programming. It's not just variability from day to day.
So if we were hypothetically going to say you've got a client in, they've given you 12 months where it's like, hey, look, I'm going to run an off season for potentially 8 months. Is there a framework that kind of comes to mind that you would utilize in order to, say, build their squat from something you don't like into something you do like? Like, can you kind of run through like a progression of parameters in which you would utilize to sort of get them from one end to the other end?
Yeah. Oh, man. Fuck, I can. How long do we have? It kind of depends on the issue as well, though, with the tools that we're going to use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fuck, like, on a shorter timeline, we can use Nathan for an example. I know he listens to this, and I know he fucking really enjoyed the little shout out that we gave him last week. So I'll shout him out again. And I'm probably going to try and talk about this on Instagram this week at some point. So that'll probably come out prior to this. But for an example, something that we're doing with him is, if we look at, what's it been? It's probably been like about a 6-month cycle with him,
Mm-hmm.
where he was having the lateral hip issue that was affecting the squat. So what we did was we fixed his hips so that he was able to access a little bit more internal rotation, which obviously then allowed his hips to move a little bit better, allowed him to squat a little bit better. We worked on his squat mechanics by using slow eccentrics for a big part of that prep. And then that also worked as a load management tool, because it wasn't until he was getting super heavy that it was actually like really hurting. Before that, it was just niggling, right? So we did a lot of movement prep stuff, or like rehab stuff that I disguised as a warm up, so that it didn't feel like he wasn't in prep. And then we still kept his main movements, but what we did with his main movements was we load managed them through slow eccentrics, which also served as a really good teaching tool for the mechanics that I wanted him to use when things got heavier. We limped him through that prep. We then went into a kind of like a rest and recovery phase, where we took out all heavy stuff and we really lent heavy into the rehab prehab stuff that we were doing, but also a little bit more movement variability through the hips, just with like lateral lunges, loaded lateral lunges, things like that really opened things up and strengthened the hips in a different way. And then coming back into the kind of pre-prep phase, then he moved back into a prep. Then we loaded with, I had front squats in there and I had high bar squats in there. Then we moved into like competition squat, pain-free, went through a prep on that. That was fine. And then what we've moved into now is 12 weeks out from his next comp. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that he gets the Nationals invite, which I'm sure he will, but you don't want to count your eggs before they hatch. What I've got him doing now is a long pause in the position that I want the bottom of his squat to be, as his main squat movement, and then his secondary squat movement. At the moment, I just have his leg press just to drive pure output. And then we're going to move from that into a higher frequency style so next week will be a transition week, 11 weeks out, and then we'll do 10 weeks will be like a much higher frequency style of training, which he's never done before, but is really going to dial in on the movement patterns that I want. So we'll probably end up benching 4 times a week, squatting 3 times a week, deadlifting twice a week. but there'll be variations of working on different qualities. So one of his deadlift sessions might be like banded Dimmel deadlifts, for example, to really work on locking the knees out first slightly before the hips and then pushing the hips through in a snappy way and getting like really nice hip extension, because that tends to be the place where he fails his deadlifts. So, and that'll work as like, that's obviously not going to be heavy. That'll be a bunch of sets, pretty light, worked like dynamically. And then he'll have alternating heavy squat and deadlift weeks. And then the off week will be still competition standard, but just lighter and just focusing on movement quality. So then we're getting lots of exposures to different positions and different qualities of the movement that we want. And then we're also getting a heavy exposure where we're tying in all of those attributes into that actual full competition standard movement pattern that we want. After that, we'll then obviously transition out of a prep back into a rest and recovery, restoration type block, which usually lasts about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on like how long you can handle it for before you get really bored. And then we'll move into like a hypertrophy block, a hypertrophy block, a hypertrophy block, a strength block. Throughout those hypertrophy blocks, we'll still have variations of lifts potentially, depending on like how efficient he is at them. Like if he could drive hypertrophy through like a front squat, have at it. Like that's beautiful. If he's someone like me, which he's not, but for example, if you put me in there with my leverages and just kind of like the way that I move, I'm not going to be able to drive a whole lot of hypertrophy through a squat pattern because I'm just not that good at it. And my legs are not going to be the first thing that give out. Right. So like a squat or like a squat pattern with a barbell for me is more of a skill-based movement or a strength expression movement. If I want to drive hypertrophy, I'm going to go towards more like more externally stabilized machine-based movement, like a pendulum, a hack squat, a leg press, something like that, where I can just sit in it and just go until it's like my actual legs that fail. And that's what we want for the hypertrophy standpoint. And then we'll move back into strength, prep, comp. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I can go again if I didn't. I kind of forgot what the question was halfway through.
Like the question was, like, do you kind of like have a framework in order to take someone from like sort of where they are to where they want to be? So I think for me, like
there will be, there is always a framework, but it just depends on where they are and where they want to be and what the issue is.
Yeah, 100%.
What I don't do is just fucking wing it week to week.
No, like for example, like for me, like I'll quite often go load limiting restriction on a variation. So again, if I use Josh for example, it's like it might be tempo front squats. And then the phase after that might be like front squats without tempo. So it's kind of going refine like the variation, express the variation, and then sort of like gradually into like, and then obviously progressing the pattern to allow for a progression of load. So then we might go into like, cool, it's a paused high bar squat into straight high bar squats. And then it might be like tempo low bar into like expression low bar. And that might be like a 6-month progression for him.
Yeah. So exactly what I said, but just said in 2 sentences, not 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Mine was the paraphrased version.
Fuck my life. Fucking hell. This is what happens when you just like overly stim yourself and just yeet life.
Yeah.
Who would have it any other way?
Not me.
Caffeine,
not this guy.
Caffeine, nicotine, podcasts.
Is that because your name's Nick?
Hand in hand. No, it's because I take fucking nicotine tablets with my caffeine.
How have you found that? Because I remember years and years and years ago, I was presenting for like, so I was doing some upskilling for like a group training gym that existed down here. And they'd kind of ventured into state a little bit, but not much. And I had like an agreement where I would like upskill his staff in like 2 locations, like twice a year. So it was like 2 sessions here in Melbourne, 2 sessions over in Perth. And in place of that, I could use his gyms whenever I wanted for workshops and I didn't have to pay anything. I was like, sick. Yeah, sick. Like I could well and truly make that worth my while. And I remember before the first seminar, he's like, oh, do you want like a nicotine tablet? And I'm like, a what? And he goes, oh, nicotine, like it's great for focus, but if you haven't had them before, like buckle up. And I was like, I'm going to stick to just caffeine for today. Like I don't want to have my first session be like,
tried it?
No.
Right.
But I'm sitting there, I'm like, I think one day I'm just going to have to go out and buy some so I can try it.
Yeah, just the Nicorette, like lozenges, tablets.
Yeah.
Like they're just like little white little tablets.
Mm.
They come in that green plastic tube.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact the last one that's put out. But yeah, bro, very good. Pre-training and like who am I kidding? I just have it every day with my caffeine.
Yeah, it's good.
I use it as a pre-workout. I use it as a pre-computer work. I use it as a pre-podcast. It's fucking...
Does it just like help you focus or...
Yeah, it's a... Well, it's like it's a stimulant, but it's like a brain function thing. What are they called? You know, the supplements that help the brain work. It's like one of those. The gamers use them.
Use your big boy words.
What's that thing called? I don't know what it's called, man. Make me feel good.
Less thinky, more doey.
Yeah. No, more thinky too.
Yeah, more thinky, more doey.
Yeah, it's good. And if you can mix it with like my favorite, which is like if you're really feeling like you want like an all day goey, something like you do the caffeine, the nicotine, and then add like a modafinil or a Vyvanse. Modafinil is my favorite.
So I've never really gone down the whole avenue of utilizing any of those sort of like substances to try and drive like brain power.
What is that called? I know you know it. Just say it. Help me out here.
It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't fucking think of the word, which is why I'm actively not saying it.
Fuck, what's it called? It's not thermogenic, but it's something like that. Thermogenic's the fat burning one. It's the nootropic.
That's the
one. Yeah. It's basically a nootropic, right? So I don't know the mechanisms behind it and I don't know the chemistry behind it. All I know is that together it forms a perfect synergy of making my brain feel good. And there's like no downside to it.
Happy days.
So yeah, it's no downside that I've encountered or heard of. So you know, the fella that we spoke to on the podcast the other day is probably the world's biggest advocate of all 3 of those.
I saw that he posted before he came on that he was having like a monster, and he had like his little thing of nicotine there as well. And
if you have a look at the stories that he does. You know how he puts up the stories of his athletes, where he takes a photo of his computer screen. There's always a little, like a foil pill packet. That's modafinil.
Okay.
Yeah. So very good. But anyway, it helps. But if we're going back to things that people will find interesting and useful, and talking about training, off seasons, periodization, is there any way to take that back? I don't know. I don't know if we can segue that. Maybe we're too far gone.
There's always...
What was I even talking about before we got to that?
We were talking about like framework.
Yes. Okay. So the framework, there is always a framework. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll always build the framework out based on what I see. So it's never just willy-nilly. It's never, like my athletes get given their programs weekly.
Okay.
But I don't program them weekly. So like I said before, I'll program out as far as I can in advance, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way, but that's the framework that I build out based on what I see.
Do you use do you use software or do you use spreadsheets?
I use Book,
Mhm.
and then so this is how fucked up I am. I love spreadsheets.
Yep.
And I spend a fucking... Have you seen my spreadsheets? Oh, I'll share them with you after this. I spend an ungodly amount of hours building out a whole spreadsheet system that is beautiful. It's beautiful to program on. It's beautiful to read. It has calculations in it. It has tabs that have check-in tabs. It has tabs that have timeline tabs where I can plan out these phases of training like years in advance. It has, it'll have every program that the client has all in the same spreadsheet. Like literally everything's in it, right? It has 1RM calculators. It has RPE scales. It has my fucking favorite thing on the planet, which is your fucking estimated max calculator on there, just for everyone so that they know that they're getting stronger. It has all of this stuff. What we found was that our clients enjoyed an app more than a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Me personally, I hate programming on the app because it doesn't look the way my brain works, which is pretty hard for me to deal with. So the way that I do it when I'm programming, I'll get out a book, and I know you're a big advocate of books and I always give you shit about it, so this is your payback. I'll get out a book and I'll write down, okay, this is the issue, this is how I want to fix it. I'll lay out my main movements over 6 months. I'll lay out my supplementary movements over 6 months. I'll lay out this, I'll lay out my supporting movements. I'll do that for each session. I'll then go through. So usually what I do is I do it for the first block. Right, so 6 weeks, right? Then I'll put that into the spreadsheet so that I can always refer back to it. Then I'll take it from the spreadsheet and I'll program it into the app. And the app is what gets delivered to the client. The spreadsheet is just for me so that when I'm looking back on it, I don't have to look back through my paper. So then once I get the first block, then I'll look at so for example, I have a client who, if he listens to this, he'll know exactly who he is, who just like could not control his pelvis, like if I had a gun to his head. Like had all the right intentions, just didn't have the physical ability to do it, right? So cueing him wasn't going to help because he knew what he needed to do. He just physically didn't have the ability to do it when things reached a certain threshold. So what we had to do was develop the qualities required for him to be able to create a really strong brace to support his pelvis from above, so that when his pelvis moved back behind his center of mass, it wasn't just like a fucking earthquake. That happens from above, obviously, right? So we need to create the ability for him to create a strong base. So once I noticed that, I then built out the framework like 4 months in advance. of what I knew the physical attributes that he needed to build the strong brace. I programmed that. I wrote all of that down. I then transferred all of that into my spreadsheets so that I had it. I then put like 6 weeks at a time into the app because I really don't like programming into the app.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like 6 weeks at a time and then I make little adjustments as needed. Then once the book fills up, I can throw the book out because I've got it all on their spreadsheets. And then I can look back over their spreadsheets really easily because all of their stuff is just in one sheet.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is because the framework was built off not what I think, based off what I actually saw in the video feedback, I was then able to build out a framework very specific to this person's needs. And what we saw happen was over the 4 months, and this person overthinks a lot. So I'm not going to be like, hey, bro, this is the next 4 months of your training because that would like make his brain explode.
Yeah.
So, we talk about coaching being athlete management all the time. And part of managing this athlete is like giving him only the information required and helping him think less, not more. So I know what's happening 4 months in advance. He knows what's happening 1 week in advance. And he's like, oh, my brace still sucks. My brace still sucks. My brace still sucks. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, it's all good. Like, this is what I want you to focus on. I don't want you to think about that. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about your upper back. I want you to think about your foot pressure. I don't want you thinking about your brace too much. You know what you're doing. It's all good. Come 2 weeks ago, I get sent through videos. Oh, my brace is holding up under like, I'm hitting 1RMs that I've never hit before. These are PRs, and my brace is like holding up really nice. And my pelvis is like, looks really stable in these squats. Yeah. Because we've been working on it for the last 4 months. And that didn't happen by accident. That happened because you sent me videos 4 months ago. And from those videos, I was able to build out specific framework based on what you required.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, so I'm so sorry. That was really long-winded.
When do I ever get annoyed at you for long-winded answers?
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, like that's why I harp on everyone to send videos, because I can see a lot in a video, and it might be something that might seem insignificant, but it might end up being extremely significant. But we'll never know unless you actually like send the video.
But I think also on that note as well, like if you are working with an online coach in particular, if you don't send them videos, there's absolutely no way they can know what you're doing or how you're doing it. And then there's no way for us to be able to correct that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say like I want videos of everything. Like I don't just want videos of your squat and then nothing else. Like I want you to send videos of everything. If I program you Bulgarian split squats, like I want you to video it and I want you to send it to me, because like if you're doing it wrong or if you're not doing it the way that I want you to do it to work on a specific quality, then there's no point doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually like, it's not going to get the result that I'm hoping that it will get for it. And the way that everything's planned out, like it's not, there's nothing there just for the sake of it. Like everything's kind of there for a reason. And to get the result requires that things be done a specific way. Otherwise, that's just not going to happen. So I could program you Bulgarian split squats for fucking 8 months. But if you're doing them wrong, you may as well do 0 months of them. Whereas if you do them right, we might only need to do 2 months of them and then we can move to something else.
There's going to be a lot of people that listen to that and they're going to go, well, fuck yeah, that means 0 months of split squats. Sign me the fuck up.
Yeah, but it's serious. Like, send the fucking videos, because the way you do shit fucking matters.
100%.
Like, movement quality fucking matters, man.
Tell us why, Nick.
Well, it just does. And like, no, shut up, man.
I can see you like getting ready to be like, I'm gonna have like an old man rant right now, and I'm just like, do the thing.
I can feel you poking me. Yeah, like, I get it. Like, sometimes you don't want to do things because it's hard, but this is the difference between working out and training. Right? Like, if you just want to go and work out and just get a sweat, that's cool. Like, I'm not judging you. That's fine. Like, I know a lot of people that do that. That's great. And you probably, if that's the case, you probably aren't working towards, anything specific. It's just general health. In that case, I would probably say like a standard of movement that could be deemed safe is probably enough. But if you're an athlete, or if you want to call yourself an athlete, which powerlifters do, and strength athletes call themselves athletes, it's literally in the title. If you want to call yourself an athlete, you're not working out, you're training, and everything that you do within that training is leading towards the specific outcome that you're working towards. So if you're going to do it fucking properly. And if you're going to do it, it's like close enough isn't good enough. In my, like, close enough isn't good enough in my eyes. Like, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. And I feel like a lot of people kind of miss the mark on that, and a lot of people are too scared to call people out on that as well, for the sake of like being nice. Like, if something's shit, I'm going to tell you it's shit. Because like, if something's shit, what's the point of me saying it's good just so that you feel good about it? Like, that's negligent on my part. Like, I feel like if something isn't up to standard, it's kind of, I'm not going to be a cunt about it and be like, you're fucking shit, you should retire. But I'm not going to be like, oh, bro, that was awesome, if it wasn't. I'm going to say, hey, really good work. How did that feel? And then when you answer me, then I'm going to say, awesome, that's really good. This is what I want you to focus on next time. See how this was happening and see how this was happening. The reason I don't want you to do that is because of this. And the reason I do want you to do it this other way is because this is what I'm working towards.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of owe people that, in a sense.
Well, I mean, if people are paying you for a result and you're just coddling them, trying to make them feel better about themselves without actually giving them what they need in order to obtain that result, then what's the fucking point?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, and I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and so I feel like I kind of have earned the right to hold other people to that standard as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I feel like if something's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. And how you do one thing's how you do everything. If you're going to cut corners on your accessories, or if you're going to just, throw shit around just for the sake of throwing shit around, it's probably going to result in, your main lifts or your competition lifts probably not looking as nice as they would, or not getting the result that you want to get on competition day as well. So just understanding that, like, every session that you have and every movement within those sessions is a deposit into the bank, and whoever has the biggest bank account on comp day wins the comp a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So take every opportunity to make those deposits in a meaningful way.
I mean, that's a great saying for people to be able to take away from today's episode.
Should we just leave it there then?
It's funny. I'm like, I feel like that's a really great place to wrap up, but I'm also like, it's only been 2 hours and 19 minutes. It hasn't been borderline 3.
Oh, fuck it. Let's just keep talking then.
I mean, like, that's like a scary invitation for you and I. I don't know, like, do you have much else that you want to cover today?
did we get any questions that we haven't answered? Do you have anything that's on your mind at the moment that you think you could expand upon? Do you want to maybe like take what I said and unautistic it for our listeners so that they actually know what the fuck I said? Maybe you could just act as a conduit between me and the listeners.
Dude, that's a fucking bold statement because you know I can go on a fucking tism spiral.
I know, but I feel like this is my era. I feel like I'm in my tism era.
It's like all these, all the girls on Instagram are like, I'm in my hybrid athlete era, and Nick's like, I'm on my tism era.
Yeah, yeah. The less I go outside, the more prevalent it becomes.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get time outside in nature at the moment. Just trying to stave off the tism.
Just for the sake of the podcast. So there's at least one of us that can still speak English.
You'll be sitting there like doing like these ones into the camera and be like, listen to what I'm telling you.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, if we're talking about powerlifting as a whole and we want to go down that route of like, okay, how do I want to phrase that? All right, so you and I tend to look at things like a little bit differently to, I would say, like your quote unquote typical like powerlifting coach that hasn't maybe had a whole lot of exposure outside of the world of powerlifting, and has maybe like lived in that vacuum. I mean, a lot of the time, maybe like only, or at least for a very long time.
Can I just add something on that one really quickly to interject? I think the reason why is you get a lot of people that do 1 or 2 comps who are PTs, and they're like, I'm going to be a powerlifting coach now. It's the cliche of if all you have at your disposal is a hammer, everything is going to look like a nail.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have had enough exposure and experience external to powerlifting that we're like, no, we've got more than a hammer at our disposal.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like there's a big I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to think about powerlifting in a little bit more of an athletic sense in terms of like the scope that we view programming, periodization, training in general through. I think just looking at it through a strength of SBD perspective and just progressing load, volume, load, volume, SBD until the cows come home, I think is a very, very narrow lens to view any athletic endeavor through. That would be the equivalent of like, a league player just only focusing on like passing.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, I'm just going to fucking pass this ball like a million times until I'm fucking fantastic at passing, but at the expense of every other quality. And so I feel like we have a scope that we can kind of almost like zoom out to, where we can look at this as an athletic endeavor and we can identify the qualities required to express top end strength. The position or the I would say like the way that we need our body to function to be able to express our strength at top end, I think gets overlooked a lot. And so if we take time throughout the year to focus on other qualities, and then maybe even just like think about implementing other things like outside of powerlifting that within like a a training perspective that I haven't seen really done that I'm toying with at the moment that I think is really interesting is like a primer day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultra common in the S&C world of like, if you're game -2, for example, so like say you play Sunday, your Friday gym session is a primer session for your game on Sunday. And what you're doing is priming your CNS to fire optimally 48 hours post-session. Is that something that we could implement into powerlifting? Because something that we typically see in powerlifting is like just hammer through prep. Comp week might be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday session. And then you're like, okay, just go for a few walks for the rest of the week, do some foam rolling, and turn up to comp on Sunday or Saturday. Like, could we implement something like a primer session 48 hours out to prime the CNS? I don't know.
So, fun little insight. I program priming sessions into my clients' preps.
Beautiful.
Where it's usually the day before, where it's like, cool, this session should maybe take you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like 50% of what you hit as your last heavy single is what I want you to do the day before comp.
Yeah.
Because usually
if they've 48 hours out.
Yeah, if they've gone like, between sort of like, 3 and 7 days of not actually training to allow for some recovery, a lot of them will sometimes walk into comp and go, oh, I haven't done anything in a while. I feel like I've got like cobwebs and sluggish. I was like, cool, just go in, move something really light with a lot of intent. Like, don't do it sloppy. It's with intent. If let's say someone comes in and they say squat, 200 for their final heavy session, it's like, cool, you're going to come in, you're going to do 2 singles at 100. You're going to do 2 singles at 50% of what your bench was, and you're going to do 1 single of your deadlift. Obviously, depending on, where the numbers lie, we'll kind of give an idea of like, rough amount, but it's like total 5, maybe 6 singles. And then it's like, cool, you're out the door, you go home, and then you come back in tomorrow and you compete.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's like something that I've been looking at for the last little bit. And I find it super interesting that it's not more common. I've never been programmed one.
It's because you've never been programmed by me, Nick.
True. but like it's not like a common thing, right? You don't hear people talk about it. You don't see people do it a whole bunch. So
no, like not the same as you would in like S&C settings.
Yeah, where it's just like literally that's what you do.
Yeah.
So I think that there's interesting perspective there, and I just think from like a perspective of like powerlifting is a really young sport compared to a lot of other sports. It's like I feel like there's always we have to balance this element of what do we know works, because success leaves clues. So we don't want to just say, oh yeah, cool, that works for John Hack, but like, so what? Like obviously, like success leaves clues. If we've got like the best in the world that all do something pretty similar, like we can probably look at that and draw a conclusion that might be something. There might be some validity to that. That to me would that class is like evidence based, right? Like there's evidence there that this thing could potentially work because all of these top people are all doing the same thing. But I think just doing things blindly because that's what they've always done without asking the questions as to why can be dangerous. And I think we're still in the youngish phase of powerlifting now where I think for a long time a lot of people didn't ask a lot of questions. It was just, this is just what we do because it's what we do. And I think we're in a time now where a lot more people are starting to ask a lot more questions. And what we're finding is there might be some better ways to do some things. And some of the things that we've always done might be fantastic, and we need to kind of merge a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I would agree.
So I'm very inquisitive, and that's why.
I think as a coach, if you're not in the frame of mind of inherently being inquisitive, I think you're going to sell yourself short. Because again, it's the whole thing of like, if we just do exactly what we've been told because it's just how it's been done for so long, and then what happens when things don't work? Then what? Whereas I think being able to have again, this is something that a saying that I've absolutely stolen from Jordan, but it's like, we don't teach a system, we teach like a systems way of thinking. And I think having the framework to kind of go like through a big flow chart and go, well, was the outcome what we wanted? Yes. And so it goes down through all the other answers. Then if it's like, no, it goes through all the other things. I think being able to sort of go through a mental checklist at every sort of choice and decision that we have to make, I think if we can utilize that as kind of like our overarching principle and go, well, does this end up where we want it to? Yes. Okay. Awesome. We keep going. But then like when it's a no, it's like, well, do you have something to lean on to help guide you through those scenarios that will inevitably come up from time to time? I think that puts us in a position where we'll well and truly be ahead of the curve when things do start to tip the other way.
Yeah. And so if we bring that back to an off-season perspective, it's like asking those questions early, extrapolating the answers, and then building a framework out of those answers and moving forward. Because it's like, if you always just keep doing the same thing because it's working, I think you can fall into the trap of like underselling yourself results, because it's like you can be moving forward, but be moving forward like at a snail's pace, or you can be moving forward and be moving forward like at a hair's pace. So it's like being able to zoom out and have a look and be like, yeah, I am making progress with what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is working. But am I making progress at the rate I could potentially be making progress? Like, is there things that I could be implementing that would maybe get me more results, get me quicker results? And if you never ask those questions, you never get those answers.
Agreed.
Yeah. So then obviously, like I said, bring it back to the framework of off-season and how we look at that is like asking. And I think that's probably where you've had a super big impact on my outlook on things, is like you constantly asked questions of me, to the point where I then constantly started asking questions of myself. And then the more questions I asked, the more answers I sought out. And the more answers I got, the more questions I asked. So it's like, okay, now I have this information. I'm not going to just take this answer and run with it. Now I'm going to question this. And now I'm going to question how I implement this. Now I'm going to stack this up against these other three answers and see which one comes out ahead. And if this one comes out ahead in 2 places and this one comes out ahead in 3 places, I'm going to look at, okay, when do I implement these 3 wins into an overall scheme of like 12 months? Because maybe both answers are right, but one goes in week 1 and one goes in week 9. And that's coaching. Actually, that's programming.
It's both.
And it's doing it effectively.
Yeah.
Because there's programming of just writing some shit on paper and selling it. And then there's programming of like asking questions and then answering questions.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how I look at things. That's how I build an off-season / training framework.
Love it.
Is that acceptable for you, Ben?
You say that like it wouldn't be. Like, no, Nick, I want you to go back from the start and reframe everything that you've said over the last 2.5 hours into something that's a little bit more coherent.
Do you think anyone understood what I said? Do you want to can you do that for me? Can you be the Jetta to my shallow? Can you do? Is that possible?
No.
You don't know what I said, do you? It didn't make sense to anyone.
No, it made sense, but this is where I'm not going to try and paraphrase you, because I think for people to understand the brain of yours and the genius that exists within that brain, they need to figure that shit out.
Yeah.
Like if we try and paraphrase it, they are going to miss the nuance in the detail, and that's where the magic is. And this is where again, this is another thing that I've taken from Jordan, and there's obviously, as principles, I think they're really beneficial. There's only so much point of simplifying things before we kind of have to get to a point where it's like, no, we need to encourage people to reach up and to encourage them to go, hey, you know what? I didn't understand what he was saying. Maybe I need to go and learn some more.
Yeah, and look, man, this is one of my biggest fucking gripes with the internet, is that there's only so much that you can say on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we have to put content out. We have to show people that this is what we do and this is how we advertise our business or whatever. But like I said at the start, Instagram isn't the place to have academic discourse or long form discussions on this is how this mechanism works and this is how I'm going to build out an off-season framework, or this is how I'm going to plan out 12 months of training. It's if your back sucks, you're probably a shit powerlifter. That's probably the amount of nuance that you're going to get through Instagram. And from that, you can then maybe spark some interest or some intrigue into why that thought process is the way it is, and take the conversation elsewhere to where you can have a more meaningful conversation and give a little bit more detail and nuance into this thing that isn't fucking simple. This thing that we do is not a simple science. It's not black and white. It's not straightforward, and it's not a fucking 150 characters a minute 30 reel. It's there is nuance and there is detail, and it's a fucking it is a detailed topic that requires a little bit more discourse and a little bit more nuance than what can be provided on social media. And I think that that's probably what I'm most grateful for, is the opportunity to sit down for 3 hours and just let shit come out. And then if anyone has any questions for this, believe me, this is the tip of the iceberg. If Instagram is a toothpick, and this podcast is I don't know, a fucking puddle, but our brain is an ocean. I don't know about you, but there's no possible way that I've even scratched the surface of what I could talk about on these topics. And there's so many things that I don't want to get into, because I know, it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes, and if I go down this other road, it's going to be another fucking 2 hours. So it's this stuff, it's not simple. And when people say man, I fucking put this post up on Instagram the other day saying about, I think I wrote in the caption something along the lines of, it all works is such a narrow view, because yeah, it does all work like to a degree, but like that is such a simplistic way of looking at such a nuanced topic that it actually pisses me off.
Yeah. I'm seeing if I can. When was it that you posted it?
What post did I put that on? It was something. I wrote something about like Corollas and Ferraris. I think it was on one of our reels. It was on the. It's on the. It has the Strength Symposium cover on it, the most recent one.
Oh, and your caption was, "It all works as a low resolution perspective when the goal is performance. As an athlete, the 1%ers don't add up; they multiply." Shout out to man Jordan for that one. Driving Corolla because it's the only option is one thing, but nobody is choosing the Corolla when a Porsche is on the table. Programming structure and progression models, in brackets, giving you the keys to the Porsche is what I'm looking forward to delivering at the Bars Loaded Podcast Strength Symposium on April 20th. Cheeky little plug.
Yeah.
But yeah, like 100%. I think when we get the opportunity to sort of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole with some of these topics, I think it really is a great opportunity for us to highlight how complex they are. And obviously we kind of need to use, the 90-second snippet of a reel on Instagram as kind of like, dropping some bait in the water and getting the fish up. And then it's like, cool, we can use something else, drop in an actual hook. And it's the whole process of like building up towards, getting someone from number 1 entry point, number 2 slightly more, number 3, and sort of building up towards something where we go, hey, look, this is actually what we're talking about here. And I think in a society that is kind of very much being primed to want short, sharp everything, they don't really want the long-term discussion around any sort of like specific nuance over a long-form conversation. I think it does obviously provide a layer of challenge, but I think it also provides a really amazing opportunity for us to be able to then go, hey, look, we can kind of drift down our own direction and kind of like attract people that frankly like are the ones that we probably want to be working with, who will take the time to listen to this stuff and actually come on this adventure with us and listen to us go full tism and rant and rave about things for fucking 3 hours every single week.
Yeah. And just like think about that caption that I wrote and break that down. It's like, if you just read that caption, it probably just doesn't sound like a whole lot other than just like Nick putting words together. But like, if you think about what that actually means, and then think about like what our role is as I would say like a coach or like a figure of like somewhat authority in the field that people would turn to for advice and for coaching and for guidance. It's like, if we're the ones then just saying, oh, like everything works, that's fucking bullshit, man. That's such a shit thing for someone in our position to do. That's such a low resolution or like such a zoomed in approach that I feel like really does the profession and does the art of coaching and training and like getting better such a disservice. Because it's like, if you don't have a car, a Corolla is like really cool, right? But once you have a Corolla, then you're like, okay, I feel like I probably want a new car. Okay, then you go and then you get like a new Kia. And you're like, oh, cool. These new Kias are like pretty nice. It's got power windows. This is cool. But you don't drive around in the Kia forever being like, fuck yeah, Kia's my dream car, do you? And you're like, fuck, this Kia is pretty comfy. It drives a lot better. It's got power steering. My Corolla never had that. It's got power windows. That's cool. Look at that BMW. That's fucking sleek, man. That looks nice. I like that blue, that electric blue color. 2-door, it's sporty. It looks good. Oh, okay. I'm moving up in the world a little bit. Got a little bit more disposable income. I get a BMW. Wow, this is nice. This drives really cool. Shout out BMW. I've got a BMW. It's the nicest car I've ever driven. Beautiful. literally like drivability on that thing is like off the charts. I hate it because I don't fit in it, but like it's a fucking beautiful car.
Mm.
But like if someone's offering me a Porsche, like I'm not going to keep the BMW. I'm going to take the Porsche, right? So it's like
shout out Porsche, you should sponsor us.
Yeah, if you're looking, I'm taking. But it's like this is like our job in here is like we're Porsche dealers,
and
like when people come into when they come into training and they find the gym or they come to us and they want to get better, and they're driving a Corolla. Like our job isn't to tell them that like a Corolla is great and that everything works and like their Corolla still gets them from A to B and they should just be really happy with that. Our job is to show them like, okay, these are the steps that we can take to get you into a Porsche.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be little things along the way that we need to do. Like we need to trade your Corolla for a Kia and we need to trade your Kia for a BMW. We need to trade that for a Land Rover. And then we need to trade that for your Porsche, right? Like that's how it's going to go. So I feel like that's our job, and that's not an everything works approach.
No,
because if everything works, then like why do anything different? Like let's just all do whatever the fuck we want with no direction.
Agreed.
You got me started again.
I would never.
I know you did.
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts on where we're at as the position and the responsibility that we hold is to hold a standard.
Yeah. I'm all for it.
So yeah. I think that's where we're at. So I apologize for everyone. I feel like this was really ranty. But in saying that, I did warn everyone last week that this is just kind of where I'm at the moment. So
you also did preface yourself as like Clint Eastwood at like in Gran Torino, just being like a grumpy old man on the Porsche, like scolding everyone that walks past, being like fucking kids these days.
But I'm scolding out of love.
Yeah, no.
That's the thing, right? Like Clint Eastwood's looking at these kids and he's not like saying fuck you kids because he hates them. He's saying like fuck you kids because he knows that they can do better and he can see the wrong path that they're going down. And he's made all the same mistakes and he's further on in his life and he can see the path they should be taking, so it annoys him that they're not. And that's the same with me. I'm not scolding people because I'm an asshole. I'm just
a little bit of that.
A little bit, but it's more so the fact that I'm doing it out of love. Like I want the best for everyone.
You want to elevate people.
Yeah. I do. Being 6'6", man, people need to elevate. I'm lonely up here.
I bet you are. It's a long way for us to reach.
It's long, man. It's a long way up here. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I think you've done a really wonderful job at sort of summarizing, obviously, an opinion that you and I both have.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would.
I've done an average job.
No.
But we got it done nonetheless.
No, I think you've done a really wonderful job. I think if people can't quite join the points together, I think that's kind of a really good invitation for them to then go and, like, obviously do a bit of upskilling themselves. Again, even if they're not coaches, I think it's a really good invitation to get people to sort of expand their understanding of knowledge and that sort of thing. Obviously, some episodes we're probably going to go into more of that education of those topics, and there are going to be some episodes like tonight where we'll be kind of hammer home a little bit more. But I think, again, I think you've done a really wonderful job at sort of summarizing an opinion that both you and I hold, as far as our perspectives, our opinions, and our hopes and dreams for things moving forward.
Yeah. And, I'm heavily entrenched and heavily invested in moving things forward in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's end it there.
Happy days. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Peace.